Welcome everyone back to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. I'm your host of a show called Trendz, where we digest something in the week of the AFL that has caught my eye. If you're new around here, please make sure you like and subscribe. It does help the channel out, and we do all sorts of content here focusing on the Australian sporting scene, from netball, AFLW, right through to the footy, which is why you're here today. And as a Carlton fan, something a bit different today. We are looking at Essendon Football Club. So let's run that intro and get straight into it.
But I just slide right by that energy. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Essendon Football Club, let's look at them then. Currently in the top 8. Last year they finished 15th with an age ranking, interesting enough, as the second youngest side in the comp. 15th in games ranked, one of the least experienced sides, and we've got a current Trendz ranking, their power ranking of 11th, where they're oscillating based on form, which is kind of mighty impressive, it has to be said. Essendon are that bizarre side, aren't they? The media either overrate them or underrate them, but Brad Scott has come in and he's really stabilised these boys. And let's take a look at what Brad Scott's done. It's basics, basics, basics. It's a little bit like when we talked about St Kilda and what Ross did. They have really ironed out the basics, but they've got a bit of a hard edge, and that is something that has been the question mark from the Bombers for probably 2 or 3 years. I remember as a Carlton fan, we played in their big ceremonial game. There was the big fanfare and the dry ice and the fireworks, and there was that big moment where Dyson Heppell really led the troops and tried to get them fired up, and they kind of went out like a damp squib. And this is the thing that Brad has done. They're a little bit gritty. There's a little bit of a hard edge. There's more importantly pride in the Guernsey. And even though I'm a Carlton fan, I can appreciate the Essendon Guernsey itself carries a lot of prestige. It's a big club, and that is something that has come back with probably abundance when you watch the Bombers at the moment. That little hard edge, that pride, that passion. And let's look at them in a numerical sense of the word. Points scored from D50, they're currently 7th, and that is a huge improvement. They were bottom 3 for that stat last year. And there's definitely an onus when they've got the tools that they have, seeing Ridley and Redmond, to really look for them score launches down back and really take you when you're at your strength. The contested marks has been a big feature. The bigger bodies up the ground, really contesting hard, really winning them one-on-ones and really taking it out. And it needs to be looked at that there isn't any Peter Wright, who is sensational in his craft and as that kind of marking specialist. They've really found a way to negate that. And a big one here, a big improver. Again, bottom 2 stat last year. Inside 50s, there's an onus to get this ball inside 50. There's an onus to get them forward. And there's a big onus at the moment to really try and get the ball into the mixer and get something happening. It's a lot more of a free-flowing, more aggressive game plan. And there's all sorts of other stats as well. The tackling, it's gone up to 12, but that was from bottom 2 as well. There is a little bit more intent. There's a little bit more willingness to get your head over the ball and do the gritty and dirty stuff to allow you to play expansive football. And that's something that we've seen from St Kilda and Essendon. These two sides look to score, look to go hard. And there's a few players here that I want to focus on. The first one is Darcy Parish. This guy feels like he's been around ages, but he's only 25. 16 games last year, few of them as sub. Midfielder, as we know, and he's 10th this season as a ranking as a midfielder, and he's really flourishing in this role. We saw it a couple of years ago. He kind of, would you say, broke the mould, came out of that potential to a player, and he's really showcasing it here, and he's kind of going about his work understated, particularly when you look at the numbers. And these, when people ask how we do the Trendz ranking, we try and focus on important midfield numbers. Contested possessions there, you can see he's elite for that, 13 a game, and very good for 7.5 ground balls a game. And you really see that he's really trying to get them second and third efforts, especially from the hit outs in that centre contest. When something goes wrong, he's trying to fix it. and he's becoming a little wily customer in and around the contest. It's really good to see. The tackles is just around the AFL average, and people do criticise that. It depends what his role is. You look at his role at Essendon, he's not the Cripps. He's not, the Hewitt. He's there trying to make something happen. He's trying to be that next layer. He's trying to get that ball from being won to somewhere that's going to hurt. One of them outside runners hitting speed. And he's been very good at that, as we can see, with 74% efficiency with his disposals, which is in the very good section. And when you're getting the ball as many times as he is, which is just under 30, they're impressive numbers. You want to be able to retain possession. Possession retention is something that is huge in world sport at the moment, and something that's probably kind of understated. I think that people don't really look at it. You look at the Geelong mould, you look at what Carlton are building, you look at what Collingwood are building, that teams are starting to understand, which is probably the most obvious thing, but your opposition can't score if you've got the ball. And 20.3 pressure acts, he really does put that pressure on, and if he hasn't got the ball, he's working hard off it, and he's a really solid player. The other guy, we talked a little bit about their ability to defend and score in transition. It was really prominent versus GWS last week. Plus 30 was the differential. And Jordan Ridley is a big part of that with his mate who we'll talk about later. 20 games last year, 24 years old. As we know, he's a defender and he's ranked 23rd in his position. And Ridley's one of these guys that goes under the radar, but a guy that really catches my eye when he plays. And you look at this here, the one-on-one percentage, 64%. And quite often, believe it or not, Jordan Ridley does spend a little bit of time oscillating around the opposition's key. You saw it this week on Himmelberg. He floated towards him. And although of his size, he is very wily at it. 0.8 tackles, which is about average for his position. He's coming from that third type position. So it's not something that you really worry about. He's playing at that high half back, or he slots into the pocket and acts as that interceptor. But these are the key numbers here. 1.8 score launches a game, elite, the top echelon of AFL, and 91% kicking accuracy. This guy cuts you apart by foot, and you've seen a lot of these teams play strong forward zones. Jordan Ridley is the antichrist of that. That is what he offsets, and he's got the AFL norm of 5.8 intercept possessions a game. Jordan Ridley is a real fearful player down the back, because he can hit you when you're at your best. And that is something that Essendon are building quite nicely with some of their players they've got. Another guy that we're going to talk about is Sam Draper. And obviously under Scott's regime, he likes it to be tough. He likes to win the ball from the source. If you win it from the source, it kind of negates everything your opposition do. 22 games last year, 24 years old, and 13th this year. And let's look at how that's correlated. And this is, for a ruckman, when you see a lot of yellows saying, oh, well, Pom, that's AFL average. Yes, it is. But what is important to know is that's all you need. Gone are the days of elite ruckmen are going to change the world. If that was the case, Melbourne would have won 20 flags. Do you know what I mean? Since Max Gawn's gone, and there'd be odds-on favourites to win it this year. It's not quite the case. It's how they act as almost that sixth midfielder in that chain. And you can see here, these are really good numbers. 41% hit-outs won, hit-outs to advantage 30%, 2.5 ground ball gets. That's probably something he needs to work on, that ground ball game. He is willing and he gets his head over the ball. The pressure numbers indicate that. But that's probably one of his weak areas. But this is really important, how he floats forward. So we've got intercept marks and marks inside 50. Ruckman generally rest either behind the ball or ahead of the ball. Sam Draper's resting ahead of the ball. And these 1.5, that's elite for a ruckman. Really showing that he's really holding his role. And it's not so much about goal kicking for Sam Draper. A lot of people get really bogged down with that. What you're looking for is someone that takes players out of the game when he's forward. And that's something that Draper does incredibly well. When he is forward of the ball, he is being annoying. And he's averaging just under a goal a game. But you watch, people gravitate towards him. It happened at GWS a lot. When he goes forward, players gravitate to him, which frees up other players. And Jake Stringer will have been a big beneficiary of the fact that Haynes it was like a magnet to him. And he's been doing very well, and one to really look out for. Mason Redmond, 20 games last year, 25 years old, defender, 10th this year. And this guy here is sleep on him at your peril. Look at these numbers. What an incredible footballer Mason is. 100% one-on-one wins. That is insane. That is insane when you're playing that position. And again, see Ridley often gets the toe as well in transition, is the first back, and he does incredibly well. 3.5 tackles. He's a little mongrel off that high half-back, playing that third defender if he needs to. And he's really dangerous. He's not scared as well. He's got the pace to keep up with the smaller guys, but he's got the strength to keep up with the bigger guys. 1.5 score launches, which is very good. Again, he's using the ball well. And look, 86% disposal efficiency. Clean as custard. Really clean. Hits the targets well. And 7.5 intercept possessions. A really, really complete footballer. And one that will be knocking on the door of that AA. But that's the Essendon Bombers. Massive improvement for them. They've got some tough games coming up though. But you can only beat what's in front of you. And at this stage, all roads really lead to a massive improvement from Brad Scott. And at the moment, him and Mr. Ross will be probably putting their hands up for Coach of the Year if we nominated at this stage. But that's the Essendon Bombers. I've been PommyInOz. This is Trendz for Inner Sanctum. Make sure you like and subscribe and turn that notification bell on. And until next time, peace.